Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Sydney, and today we are back with another Reddit and Rosé. I am super excited about this one, guys. This wine was on sale at my grocery store for $3. It's called Gato Negro, and it's a rosé. I thought it was only fitting because of the little cat that we just got. Please be better than last time. Please be better than last time. This one is a little bit better than the last one. I'm picking out all these dry ass rosés. I think maybe a sparkling one might be better. I don't know. I'm not a wine connoisseur. I just like alcohol. So all of today's stories are actually from the subreddit Paranormal. I've been finding lots of really good stories on that one. So let's get right into the stories. So this story is called Something Really Creepy is Happening in My Apartment. Something really weird happened today. I got home and found there were deep scratches on my bedroom TV, and before I left this morning, it was okay. And that's not the weirdest thing. The night before, my girlfriend and I were home and we ate pizza, and we're 100% sure that there were 3 pizzas left in her box that she couldn't eat. In the morning, she got up and left before me, and when I woke up, I looked to see if she had finished them and found that she still had 3 pieces. However, when I came home this afternoon, there were 2 pieces in the box, and she confirmed to me that she had not eaten and that there were 3 pieces. A similar food incident happened to me last week when I returned from holiday. Just before we left, I left half a sausage and a box of fries in the fridge, and when I came back, they were gone. Then I thought I must have thrown them away before, or my aunt had dropped by and picked them up. Today, my aunt confirmed that she hadn't been in town for 1 month and hasn't been by. I also noticed a little later that the microwave setting has been changed. I have more stories with missing items, lights left on and things like that, but I always explained it away as losing it or something like that. I don't know what to think, I don't know what to do. The only people who have a house key are my aunt, my uncle, and my dad. My uncle has absolutely no reason to come home, especially while I'm gone. My dad is on vacation, and like I said earlier, my aunt is out of town. And then there's an update. Now I'm 100% sure that someone has to have access to my apartment. I saw a hole in the wall that is completely new, and someone has opened a completely new box of sweets. Also, there are other missing sweets like 1 chocolate and 2 bars of Kit Kats. I'm changing the locks tomorrow, and I will sleep with a knife by my side while the front door is blocked. So that's terrifying. You always hear stories of people like being inside walls, like that one viral TikTok. I think it has to be like almost 3 years old now, where that girl like removed her mirror and there was a whole nother apartment behind. That shit creeps me out. I live in an apartment, so I mean, there's always people around, but I think having things going missing and not being able to account for it is absolutely horrifying. I would be freaking out. So I hope that the poster is okay. I hope that everything's fine after they got their locks changed, because that's not even paranormal. I feel like that's just somebody, like the poster said, inside their house, just eating their food and things like that. That's horrifying. All right, so our next story is by user Hayden Elizabeth. This story is called My Childhood Home Was Haunted. I lived in my childhood home from when I was a baby until 13. My family is very religious, and as a child, I was taught that when you die, you either go to heaven or hell, and that's it. I was never told about anything supernatural, so in a lot of these moments, I had no idea what I was experiencing. It wasn't until I was older that I understood. Also because I was so young for some of these, or I didn't understand it in the moment, I only remember some details. Last story is probably the scariest, and I tear up every time I talk about it. I wanted to do this in chronological order, but I honestly can't remember which of these happened first, so I'll kind of combine them because they involve the same entity. In elementary school, I walked home from school every day since it was only about a 15-minute walk. The house next door to us was abandoned for quite a few years after the last neighbors moved out, and I walked past it every day. Pretty frequently, I would see this girl in the top floor window, and she looked to be around the same age as me, maybe a little older. Curly, dirty blonde hair, a pink bow in her hair, wearing a pink and white frilly dress. I never really thought much about her and would just go home. There was this one time, though, that made me really confused. I was with my sister in her room playing with Barbies. She had shuttered the window in her room that faced the backyard. We were playing and I'm not really sure why, but I had the strongest feeling that I needed to open the window, so I did. The girl was in our backyard, standing in front of the slide. I wasn't scared and was just staring at her. Continued to stand there, and I'm not sure how long we were looking at each other, but she eventually began to fade away. The best I can describe is like when you stare at a light bulb and look away and you can still see the outline. It was kind of like that until she was just gone. It sounds stupid because if I saw that now, I would freak out. But after she was gone, I just kept playing with my sister like nothing happened. I would see this girl pretty often, but she never scared me. This one is short, but it was the middle of the night and I was asleep. I was maybe 5 or 6. I was suddenly awoken to a hard punch to the stomach. After recovering and calming down, I went to my parents' room and they told me it was nerves, so I believed them. I absolutely hated my parents' room. The feeling and energy in there was just so heavy and dark. The feeling of panic would wash over me every time I was in there. On multiple occasions, I would see things in there when walking to and from my room. The scariest entity I ever saw was standing on the right of their bed. It had skin that looked like tar, and it was taller than the ceiling, so it had to bend to fit in the room. I don't remember if it had a face. I eventually stopped looking in their room entirely. I hated when my parents would ask me to grab something from their room. I would sprint out every time. Oh my God, I can't imagine seeing something like that just in my parents' room. That's horrifying. One time I had to walk home from school and it was very hot. So when I got home, I threw my hair up into a ponytail to cool off. I walked into my room and I immediately felt fingers grip my ponytail and start pulling me back to my parents' room. It didn't hurt, and I thought it was my dad messing around. And he's a big guy, so I went to elbow him in the stomach and hit nothing. Confused, I looked down and saw no feet behind me. Just as the panic started to hit, it dropped me right in front of my parents' door. I whipped my head around to see what it was, and nothing. I sat in shock for a few moments before the tears started to fall. I eventually got up and found my dad talking to my grandma in the living room. This entity sounds very scary and very harmful. Like it's just scaring this little girl. That's so mean. This one happened about a week before we moved out. It was only me and my grandma home. I was in the living room doing my homework on the couch. My grandma was watching TV in her room, which was to the left of me. The kitchen and dining rooms and all of the bedrooms were to the right of me. The hallway is out of sight of the living room since it goes behind the dining room. I was focused on my homework when I started to hear footsteps going up and down the hallway and into the bedrooms. I thought it was my sister wearing her Disney princess costume heels. The footsteps kept going on for a while, and then I realized my sister wasn't home and it was just me and my grandma, and that she was on the opposite end of the house. My cat was by my feet. My heart sunk once I realized what it was, but decided to just ignore it and not give it any attention. It eventually stopped, so I felt more relaxed. After a few minutes of quiet, I heard the loudest slam I ever heard coming a few feet away from our dining room. It sounded like somebody picked up a boulder and slammed it on the hardwood. I was looking on the ground for what might have fallen when I heard it speak. It was multiple voices hissing and groaning my name all at once. It was the scariest thing I've ever experienced and currently have full body chills when remembering what it sounded like. I sat in silence with tears rolling down my face, frozen in place for what felt like forever. I was too terrified to move or make a sound. I finally managed to squeak out a little "Grandma," and nothing happened. I started to sob and call for her. We moved out later that week, and the first night in the new house, I had a dream. I was standing in the street outside of my old house at night. It was quiet and all the lights were off. Then all of a sudden, all the windows were open and it was so bright inside, it looked like a lighthouse. It sounded like a party was happening, multiple conversations going on, and you could see the shapes of people moving around in the house, manipulating the light. And just as quickly as it started, it stopped. The windows all slammed shut and everything was dark and quiet again. Then I woke up. I haven't experienced anything close to this since moving. A few years ago, the current owners of the house invited my family over for a Super Bowl party. I decided not to go, but my sister did. She talked to the owners and asked them if they ever experienced anything weird since moving in. They were shocked that she asked, and apparently they were seeing shadow people in and around the house and looking in the windows. Whew. That story was freaking jam-packed. So I didn't grow up in a haunted house or anything like that. I have had like a few very small kind of paranormal things happen, but if this shit was happening to me on the daily, I would be begging my parents to move out every single chance I got, because like the spirit was talking to her, it was pulling her hair, it was making her life a living hell. Like, what the heck? I hope that now that she's out of that house, she can just live her best life and not have to worry about that anymore, because that's so stressful, especially for a child where you don't really know what's happening. So this one is very short and very sweet. This one is from Becca Penny in Our Paranormal, and it's called "My Husband Came Home Last Night, Except He Didn't." I was working at home and he had gone into his office. I worked later than usual, and when I heard him arrive home, I didn't go down to greet him as I was about to finish my work. I thought it was a bit odd that he didn't call to me, but I figured he realized I was still working and he didn't want to disturb me. When I finished working about 20 minutes later and went downstairs, he wasn't there, so I assumed that he must have popped back out for something. When he arrived back, I apologized for not coming down the first time. He looked confused and said he'd only just got back because he'd been held up. I clear as day heard the front door open and close and him dump his stuff down. I remember being pleased that he'd remembered his keys because he usually forgets. Then this evening, at around the same time, my motion-activated light-up cat ball went off twice and no one was anywhere near it. I'm a huge skeptic, but it's been an odd 2 days. Yeah, that one's creepy. I don't like that. Every time I hear a story like this, I'm like, it's a doppelganger. Oh my God, it's a doppelganger. Or like, it's a mimic, and I don't like that either. There's just something very eerie about something very familiar, like, oh, my husband coming home, turning into like, he was never home. I have one last story for you guys, and this is by Sandy Bell 98. This story is called, I Work for a 200-Year-Old Church. It's haunted. The church campus consists of the sanctuary, the office, an empty, decrepit house where the priest used to live. This building was later used for a meeting space until it was condemned, and a cemetery, with the oldest graves being those of War of 1912 soldiers. All of these buildings have stone exteriors. A priest died in the house in the late 1800s. He was old, so nothing nefarious there. But he still haunts the place, which seems odd to me since he was a priest and obviously believed in heaven, etc. Why did he stick around? When I first started working there, I was in the office with a member of the congregation who told me that on several occasions when they left the old house and turned off all the lights, they would turn around and see that all the lights had been switched back on inside of the windows. I believe in the paranormal and have had experiences myself, so I was intrigued. This person sounds like me. I'd be like, oh really? When I left the office that day by myself, I turned off the lights. At the last switch, I felt almost an electric buzz through my finger. The office itself is old, so it wouldn't have surprised me if something wasn't grounded right, etc. Didn't think anything unusual about it. I went back to my desk to grab my things and lock the door, and the light switch I had turned off was on. Keep in mind that this was the same day I had found out about the priest. I tried to ask him again to show me any sign that he's there, but he's never done anything else in the 4 years I've been working there. But without asking, I've seen flashes of light in a dark, windowless room. I'm not sure what this was, but I saw a man cross in front of my headlights and disappear. He had dark hair and was wearing a white shirt. I once unlocked the deadbolt on the door to the church, and when I went to turn the knob to go inside, something turned it the opposite way in my hand. This was during lockdown, so definitely no one was inside. I ran. This person is smart. I like this person. I've seen motion detector lights outside turn on by themselves, and when I've jumped in front of them waving my hands, they've never come on. I heard this one from my boss, who's a priest. The organist was practicing by themselves in the church when a pencil went flying across the room. The decrepit house is supposed to be torn down within the next year or two. I'm not sure how or if that will affect the priest who won't leave. Maybe he finally will. That's really interesting. I wonder if the hauntings are all just from the priest or if it's from multiple different spirits that, are within the church. The fact that they have a cemetery on the property, I feel like could maybe play a part in this. I just think it sounds like it's not just one entity because it's doing multiple different things. But that's really cool. A lot of the commenters were like, I want to see that house. And I agree. I would love to see pictures of those buildings. It just sounds so interesting. So those are all of the spooky ooky stories that I have for you guys today. I would rate this wine, this Gato Negro rosé wine, I would rate it like a 5 out of 10 maybe. To be fair, it was $3. It was on sale. I really just got it because the bottle was cute and it reminded me of my little bean, my little Agatha. She's so cute and it reminded me of her. I would love to hear below, which story do you guys think was the scariest? I really think that haunting that girl experienced in her house was probably my favorite story that we talked about today. Like I said, I haven't really experienced a lot of paranormal things, but I feel like although experiences like that must be so scary at the time, I think it's just so interesting. I would love to see proof that ghosts exist. Scariest thing I've ever experienced is one time I was doing homework upstairs in my kitchen, and in my basement we had this old TV set up from my aunt. and the TV like randomly turned on and it was like blaringly loud. It was horrifying. I was all by myself and I had to walk down the stairs and like turn off the TV, and I was, at that time I had a dog and I was like, you have to come with me because it's so scary. Like that's nothing compared to a lot of the stories that we read, but I just think it's interesting when things happen that the human brain can't really explain and we can't really wrap our heads around it. But I feel like I've rambled on long enough. So if you guys enjoyed this episode of Reddit and Rosé, feel free to give a like and subscribe if you are interested. Are you guys liking this series? Let me know. I'm really enjoying it. I really love reading spooky stories, but if this is not your guys' cup of tea and you'd rather see other content, I would love to know that too. So please let me know. Other than that, I hope that you guys have a beautiful, wonderful rest of your day. Make sure that you are staying healthy and hydrated. Make sure that you're eating, okay? The brain needs at least 500 calories to function. So make sure that you're eating and taking care of yourself. Do something nice for yourself today and keep being the bad bitches that you are. Bye, guys.
You sweet girl. Oh my gosh, you're so scared.